Hello and welcome. On behalf of Ohio Healthy Homes Network Board and Executive Director Patricia Barnes, we are so glad you joined us. My name is Gina Wilt, and as Advocacy Director for COHIO, I'm also a proud OHHN board member. Dating back to 1997, OHHN has worked with parents and community leaders on lead poisoning prevention. And while much of the expertise is in lead poisoning, OHHN also promotes policies to improve weatherization, indoor air quality, asthma prevention, children's health, aging in place, legal services, and more to move Ohio towards a more holistic approach in healthy housing. So thank you to our event sponsors who not only make forums like this possible, but also understand the critical role of OHHN. So let's now go to fellow board member and PWC's own Aaron Grant.
In the year ahead, the Ohio Healthy Homes Network will continue to advocate for investment in childhood lead poisoning prevention, as well as housing programs that improve internal air quality and help older adults age in place. We'll continue to host webinars, to issue our monthly newsletter, and to be a resource to Ohio residents who have healthy housing issues. That's why we need your help. We hope that you'll consider making a contribution to OHHN to help us continue our mission to bring value to members and to families all over Ohio. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Flynn, and I am the Executive Director at ModCon Living, and I will be your moderator this afternoon. Welcome to our webinar, Healthy Homes Interventions in the Age of COVID. I would like to first say a special thanks to the Coalition on Homelessness and Housing in Ohio. This webinar would not be possible without them. And thanks to all of our sponsors. And here is a list of all of our sponsors for this webinar. During the webinar, all participants' lines are muted. Please use the question features in the GoToWebinar control panel to submit questions. Please note that the PowerPoint will be posted on OHHN's website and that this webinar is being recorded. If you are looking for Ohio registered sanitarian CEs, or if you just want to leave your thoughts after the webinar, stay tuned to the very end and fill out our evaluation form to let us know what you thought. So we're going to begin this panel discussion with our first panelist. His name is Sam Reinhart. He is speaking in partnership with GH Ruinvich. GH is a technical consultant for the Corporation for Ohio Appalachian Development, and Sam is the safety co-chairperson for the Corporation for Ohio Appalachian Development. Welcome, Sam and GH.
Good morning. Hi. Well, afternoon. Here we are. COVID has had to remain open during the course of the pandemic because of various programs that were deemed pretty much essential. The training center, which I'm part of, had to cease in-person training, but went to a Zoom video format. So many things were really necessary to even do that. There was Sam Reinhart was probably working day and night just to ensure that the building was going to be safe for the people that were coming in. And as you know, things were changing on a pretty regular basis. So here's just a picture of the front of our building in beautiful Athens, Ohio, where you would enter. And here at the front entry, we have set up various sanitizer station questionnaire for people to look at, which was pretty much standard stuff, asking people if they've had a fever, have had a cough, or have knew if they'd been exposed to anyone that may have had COVID recently. We had thermometers there where people were self-checking temperature and what else did we have? I had other information such as signs to remind people of social distancing. Everyday business. One of the things that Sam did was to install higher MERV rated filters, which is a high filtering type system in our air distribution system. This is these types of filters are available in various ratings. If you're going to use one of these, though, you want to be careful. You can probably put one in that's rated too highly for the system that you have. So you want to be sure that you use the right one. Sam also sealed up bypasses around in the system around, especially where the filter slots were and things like that, so other air didn't come in, and changed the filters more often, took precautions to safely dispose of the used filters, treated them as if they were contaminated. There's an example of when the filter went in, it was taped into place so that it was actually more sealed. This is the door of the furnace is off to see the filter in place. There's another view there. So these filters were sealed, and it's, as I said, properly sized for the units that were there. Other things that we've done was, as long as it's feasibly possible, try to dilute indoor air by keeping doors and windows open. We have a kitchen here, so the exhaust fan was running at all times, as well as in the restrooms. Those fans are running 24/7. And the furnace fans, based upon recommendations from CDC, were set to operate continuously, whether they were in the heating or air conditioning mode. The fan was on at all times. So here's an example, and obviously we're probably running out of days when we're going to be able to have the building wide open and have comfort at the same time, but we do that when it's possible. As I was saying earlier, there was quite a few meetings with the people that were involved in the building here, training staff, other department heads, because we have quite a few different programs that operate out of this building. And we try to determine what were the best ways to meet all the needs of all the different programs. So we had to re-emphasize social distancing, decontamination, and Sam was, still is, doing a yeoman effort as far as cleaning. When he started out, that was pretty much with what he could get a hold of, because a lot of stuff, as you may have known, as far as safe cleaning materials, were kind of hard to come by. What we had to do when we decided to reintroduce in-person training in this building, which was probably the major situation where we were going to have outside people entering and exiting the building besides regular staff. We had to reinforce the idea of social distancing and remind people of that. We had to have masks available and remind people of mask protocols as they moved through the building, remind them of social distancing, and then reconfigure classrooms. We had touchless sanitizer points, what we call our new normal, which I don't really like that term because I hope this isn't the new normal. I'm hoping against hope that someday we can get back to the old normal. Um, there are students, when they come in, we have a questionnaire for them that does affirm that they have not been exposed to the coronavirus to the best of their knowledge, that they haven't traveled out of state or out of the country recently, and pretty much standard recommendations. So it required a lot of coordination from the trainers, the participants, and other people that were in the building here. We had to enhance the sanitation at the entrance to the building. Each, when people were coming in, they were escorted to the training area that they were going to be sitting in or using at the time they were here. All training that we do here is pretty much hands-on training, about 50% of the time. So it required making time to sanitize tools and equipment that people here for training were using after each usage. And it meant that each classroom and each learning station had to be sanitized between individuals there. Right? Some of the cleaning supplies and some of the equipment that we had. Here's some of the filters on the right here, but a whole variety, and we're still getting new materials here to help keep the building sanitized. It's a group effort. Each Sam is really the leader on it, and he's done all the homework. But all of us that are here on the training side, we're emphasizing the behavior of the students that are here for training, and then we're making sure that all parts of the training rooms, chairs, floors, tables, you name it, anything that people may come in contact with gets sanitized after each contact. So it's been a major change. We've had to reduce the number of people that we could have in the rooms for each training session. Typically, this room right here, we may have had, in some cases, up to 20 people at a time for trainings, and we're down to 6 people. You see right here in this picture, the chairs facing the opposite way, and that was Sam's kind of reminder that those areas had been sanitized. And once chairs were turned around, people were in using them, and we knew that the room had to be re-sanitized. Chairs, tables, floors, everywhere after the usage. Here's our main lab area that we have, where a lot of hands-on training goes on. And again, we had to reduce the seating capacity in these rooms for students. And then in the back, you can see heating units there. There's a lot of heating, air conditioning, heat pump training that goes on. In these stations, people are working at these. So even these heating units had to be sanitized after a person was there diagnosing or working on that unit. So it's just taking more time. Obviously, it takes more time to train the number of people that we're trying to train. And then each day, it takes more time to pre and post sanitize everything. Again, kind of review, we make sanitizer and disinfectant wipes and so forth available at each workstation. We encourage people to clean every time they go out, if it's a break or if there's a lunch break, that they can wipe down in between. We have people make sure that they return to the same seating area, that you'll use the same seating area throughout the time that they're here. Masks are always available, and any group lab activities, as to when an instructor was demonstrating something, mask use was mandated. Non-latex gloves were always available for people to use. But even if they're using latex gloves and masks, of course, we disinfected everything that everyone came in contact with. So it was just, it's an ongoing challenge to do things right, especially early on. PPE, the personal protective equipment, masks, and others, gloves, and so forth, were hard to come by. The PPE stock that we had on hand initially was donated to the health department here locally, because everything that we had for our lead safe work and so forth, we donated to the health department, even including N100 masks, because they had an urgent need for it. So we had to do what we could and search to find replacement materials to get PPE, and it's still a challenge to this day. It's a constant reminder to each individual here as far as doing what you have to do. It's a big behavior change for everybody. There's people that have been here in the past for training, and they're used to doing things the old way. So we constantly have to refresh people's memory, I guess, of how things need to be done currently. So it's something that is ongoing at all times. And in the end, it just means that, all of us here, we work together to stay safe. And that's pretty much it.
Good. I do have a question. What is your protocol if an employee or a student is exposed outside of the workplace or the classroom and then must be tested?
Okay. Well, Sam may answer on this too, but when students come in, I guess we're taking them at their word. They have to answer a few questions in terms of if they have been exposed, and if someone says they may have been exposed or have been, then at that time we will not have them in training.
I think don't they fill out a form the week before too, something online there?
They're alerted ahead of time as to those conditions, so that if there's something in their personal history, we will reschedule their training for a later time.
I think if it goes back to if somebody currently has it that day, it's what the CDC says about the 15 minutes unmasked. I guess how long he was around the person. That's all management's decision making there, but I believe that's the plan in place if something like that happens. It hasn't happened yet, though, but
Right, and staff, we haven't had any staff who have been exposed to their knowledge to anyone, so we haven't had to quarantine anyone, but that would be, we would follow ODH and CDC guidelines for anyone that, an employee that was known to have exposure. And again, any students or visitors, they would, if they knew, then we would reschedule their visit.
Okay, great. So gentlemen, do you have anything else to add before we move on to our next presenter?
Yeah, I had something here. I picked up a magazine a couple weeks ago from Building Performance Journal. There was a section in there about reducing the COVID transmission in homes. I'm not sure what their website would be, but it's from Building Performance magazine. There's something in there about your homes, how to handle things in your homes if transmission was occurred, and what to do with your furnaces and things. I thought that would be something to add. I'm not sure what the link is to it, but it's Building Performance Journal. There's some stuff about your own homes in there.
Great, thank you.
And if there's any questions at the end, I guess there's time for that.
Yes, I think we're going to move on. We will have some more questions. Everyone will have an opportunity to ask a question after each panelist's presentation and at the end of the webinar as a whole. Just a reminder to use that questions feature on your GoToWebinar. There we go. Thank you, Thomas. I'm going to turn this presentation over to you, sir.
Well, afternoon all from beautiful downtown soggy Akron. And what I'm going to be discussing is we actually run several programs out of our office here at the City of Akron, Department of Housing and Community Services. And frankly, we are responsible for carrying out various federal programs to provide housing rehabilitation needs to folks in the City of Akron. My office has two managers, myself and Doug Taylor, who's the administrator. We have administrative assistant, two loan and grant specialists that help put the packages together for funds for homeowners or investor owners. And then we have 5 rehabilitation specialists. The rehabilitation specialists are usually the tip of the spear. They're the ones who are going into properties and meeting with the clients and also contractors to put together what type of work would be done in their property. The main programs that we operate right now are an emergency roof repair program, minor home repair program that we subcontract with Rebuilding Together. And our main program that we will be operating until at least 2023 is our Lead Safe Akron lead mitigation program. And I put this slide in mainly to show how long it normally takes for our inspectors to actually not only set up an appointment, but how long they're actually either on the property or in the home for our various programs. Minor home repair, that could be anywhere from, in the old days, it used to be leaky water pipe or faucets, or now it's more like if a resident who is 60 years of age or over, or have a disability in the home, it's more of they have a problem with their plumbing, they have a problem with their electrical services, things of that nature. And normally an inspection would take somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 minutes, probably up to an hour, just depending on what the type of work needs to be done. Or let's say Akron could take up to 4 hours when we do a lead inspection and risk assessment, as well as using Healthy Homes assessment of property safety issues, keeping the property dry, keeping it clean. And a roof inspection primarily is exterior, identifying if there is definite damage to the roof. But there are possibilities that the inspector would have to go inside because the main focus of the roof repair program is if there's an actively leaking roof on the property. So we were, all the staff members were involved in those programs um, going into this year. Our minor home repair usually uh, works with about 90 to 110 clients a year. Let's say for Akron, we're obligated to do at least 250 homes between now and the end of the program. And roof repair, that has been pretty much a mainstay for the past 5 years. And we could be knocking out at least 200 roofs in a given year. And then when we got to March, everything went blank. We our division was shut down. Uh, Everyone was furloughed, and the entire division was put on hold. What ended up happening was there were folks that were in need, regardless of the pandemic, um, and there was a discussion on how we at least have someone in the office to handle emergency issues and things of that nature. So myself and Mr. Taylor were brought back on a half-time basis to try to work through the given problems. So what we ended up doing during that time, it was probably about an 8-week period, is Doug and several of our staff members had to look at how would we be able to restart our program when everyone came back, to get folks not only back into their rehab inspectors back into the homes and identify how we could do it safely, not only for our staff, but for the client as well. So we spent most of our time trying to figure out what other um, grantees were doing that were working with lead programs, since that did take up most of the time that a staff member would be exposed to a given property. But also, that would work in the inverse. You would have to have clients that were comfortable um, wanting to have someone in their home that long doing inspections. So not only through what we've gleaned with other agents, but in other municipalities, we looked at what the nationals were doing. And early on, there was no one really had a tried and true method. So we pretty much tried to use common sense and how, as we were clients, how would we want to see someone in our home, and how would we go through um, making sure that everyone was safe. So as a staff, we looked at pretty much everything that you see, and which is now standard now, washing your hands for at least 20 seconds, uh, making sure that you had hand sanitizer. We ended up providing PPE to all of our staff members um, when we were finally able to go back inside property. So at least they had that. When they would meet with a client, they would take the proper um, protocols for uh, social distancing, wearing protective equipment where necessary. And in some cases, we had a couple staff members who requested to use a Tyvek suit. So we made sure we were able to work with a number of different contractors and suppliers to maintain a supply of PPE for our staff. These are some of the things that Doug and staff were able to identify through working with OSHA and how they classify risk exposure. Um, Pretty much now it's standard for a inspector to have cloth mask or N95, booties, gloves that we provide. We do have safety face shields, and again, what isn't on this list is the availability for Tyvek. The various risks we have utilized, but by and large, when everyone goes out, they have the basics before they head out to a site. And these would be follow-up complaints, general inspections, and I would say probably 90% of the time we're assuming that there's at least a medium risk whenever we go to someone's property. Also, what we try to do is make sure that when our inspectors go out, they at least have gone through their own protocol. We're required to take our temperatures before we leave out when we come into the office. So they would put that down on their form that you'll see like, before they go out to a client to make sure they've identified they have not had any exposure or risk or entering a client's home. We do have some equipment that is shared. We have 3 XRF machines that is used to detect lead dust, lead traces, and they're wiped down after each use, so that the next inspector can use it without any fear of getting any exposure. What we also did was, much like if you've gone to a hospital or had a doctor's checkup, what seems to be prevalent now is everyone does a pre-screening of some kind. So Doug and the team developed a pre-screening questionnaire that would identify to the clients that we're doing this not only for their safety but also for ours. And it's pretty standard nowadays, and it has worked out well. Just general questions: if you travel outside the U.S., you have a fever over 100.4, and just general questions that we tried to glean prior to going out. To my knowledge, we have not had anyone um, say that they weren't going to fill this information out, because you remember, if they qualify for any of our programs, that means there could be a financial package for them regarding a grant um, that this would benefit them in the long run. So we've yet to, from my knowledge, have any issues from any clients with that. And basically, it's spelled out to the client that we are looking to make sure, try to ensure the best possible way to make sure that they are safe and our staff is safe as well. And this also goes for the contractors. So the contractors have to ensure if they are doing work in the property, they're taking the precautions. Now, one of the things with our lead program, which is most strenuous, if we're doing lead work in the home, the client has to relocate. So we have 2 safe houses that we provide via nonprofit, where the client can go into while work is being done. They also have a choice of going relatives, or worst case scenario, they will be housed in a hotel that was procured through our program. Once the work is being done on the questionnaire, then the inspector can go ahead and provide whatever work that needs to be done. So we provide them with a list of what should be done, and what we will provide in terms of inspection of what they can expect from our folks being in their group or being in their home. It's like to start all over again. Long story short, one of the things that we have determined is when we came back, we were able to go into people's properties. We had uh, a wanting clientele. They wanted to have work done on their property. They were interested in getting their house primarily lead safe, lead free, and they were interested in taking advantage of when we were able to get back to their properties, that it could be done now, especially during the summer when the weather got good. We had started inspecting properties just a little after the 1st of July, so we were down for about about 3 months. And that has taken it has taken off well. We've done well getting back into folks' properties, and it seems to be something that we were able to survive. A lot of our technical advisors that we work with, HUD, are still working from home, and more than likely, what we'll see is that continuing. So uh, I will stop here, see if there's any questions.
Thomas, I have one question. Would you share your client questionnaire with the attendees?
Yes, I think my email is on the screen, and I can find the questionnaire. I can be sure to email it to someone there as well. But no, that's not a problem.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our next panelist, we have Mr. Aaron Grant. Aaron is volunteer program manager and lead risk assessor for people working cooperatively in Cincinnati, Ohio. So thank you, Aaron.
All right. So can you all see my screen? Amy, is that coming up?
It's coming up. Yes.
All right, great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for letting me join you guys today. Real quick, I want to go over people working cooperatively, who we are, what we do, just to put our work in context. So we're an independent nonprofit organization. We're 45 years old. We do critical home repairs, energy conservation, accessibility modifications, and lead abatement and other healthy homes issues for low-income families so that people can stay in their own home safe and healthy, which is where they want to be. Some few fast facts there. We're in about 5,000 households a year in 18 counties in the metro area in Southwest Ohio. And we are very fortunate to have about 3,500 volunteers that donate their time to PWC in some capacity over the course of the year, which is great. A lot of community support for this type of work. You know, the income cutoff for people to receive services is 50% of area median, but the plurality of our customers are very low income people. A lot of whom are seniors living on a fixed income. You can see there about $13,500 a year. So the part of the company that I also work in more directly is the Whole Home Innovation Center, and this is a new initiative of ours where we are trying to go kind of beyond the direct service work that we've been doing for a long time. You know, providing services directly in the homes of the people that we serve, and thinking more upstream about how we can have a broader impact on health and housing. And this is a place where we can have different cross-sector collaborations. It's more of a research and development type thing. We can try innovative sources of financing and trying to get health organizations more involved in a sustainable funding way for some of the things that we want to do, and really focus on the connection between health and housing. And so this is a venue for us to try to do those things, which is really exciting for us. So, you know, GH and Sam and Thomas have done a great job detailing the how, you know, the nitty gritty about what they've done to make their work environment safe in an office setting and in the field for their inspectors. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the why and the process, and kind of share PWC's story about how we arrived at our, you know, work safe protocols in the age of COVID-19 and some of the key lessons learned. And hopefully that helps round out the panel a little bit. So why are we pushing ahead? Why, you know, back in March when the world shut down, why did we want to try to adapt our programs to the pandemic? Why can't we just wait until there's a widely available vaccine? Well, I think we all agree, all of us who do this type of work, that what we do are important services, and we have to find a way to do this work safely. So simply waiting it out is not an option. So, you know, this is a quote I have here on my office wall. You know, we can't do everything we need to do. We have to do what we can. There's got to be, you know, whatever we can do for families that are living in unsafe housing is better than not doing it. So this is kind of the guiding philosophy behind us finding a way to make this work. Maybe we can't offer all of our programs all the time and not in the same way, but we have to figure something out. And, you know, our key principle here is our mission. You know, our mission hasn't changed, and it definitely doesn't say, you know, keep people safe and healthy at home as long as it's easy. So we face external challenges to doing this work all the time. This is a new challenge for sure, but it's up to us to work through it. So we had to start doing some research, and you've already heard GH and Sam and Thomas talk about these things, but I'm not an epidemiologist. We don't have one on staff, so we had to learn from the best available information. But that included, you know, CDC and EPA and OSHA and NIOSH and ODH, DHS, FDA. So it gets overwhelming pretty quickly. Find myself reading SDS sheets on cleaning products and reviewing emergency use authorizations on Brazilian-made dust masks and comparing European Union particulate filtration standards. Those aren't things that I thought I would be doing. You know, in addition to trying to follow the changing guidance from official authorities and conflicting info from different sources, academic publications. So I will say that ODH by far was the easiest for us to interpret. It was the easiest for us to kind of duplicate and share. So to their credit, very early on and often and frequently updated. And I'm sure folks in the audience have found this as well, but always was a very good resource for us as we were trying to put these things together. So we did our research. You know, now what? We knew that we weren't going to be able to scale up right away. So we have a full-time workforce of about 115 people, 80 of whom are licensed technicians that we employ, and we self-perform that work. So you know, we had to stop a lot of our programs right away. Weatherization was on hold, non-emergency interior repair was on hold, volunteer services were on hold, but we never stopped our emergency home repair program, kind of that core group of people that are used to working in challenging environments. So that's a group of about 15 folks that we thought, you know, we're going to continue this. You know, we got a designation from Department of Homeland Security that this was an essential service. We're going to keep pushing through. We have to find a way to do this safely because you know, for people that don't have heat, don't have running water, have sewage in the basement, you know, an electrical hazard, we have to keep fixing those things. The risk is too great to not do those things. So with a small core of staff and a very limited office staff, we tried, you know, some of our updated protocols, and they're very, very similar to what, you know, what Thomas is talking about for his field inspectors. People are, you know, their work vehicles are clean and neat. They're expanding their hygiene. They've got their mobile hand washing stations, as you see here on the back of Paul's van. You can see kind of our COVID-19 safety station out in front of this work. You know, we were doing mostly exterior repair work at this time and limiting what we were doing inside a client's home. And, you know, and like COAD, we had donated a lot of our PPE to healthcare because clearly that was the most compelling need. As we were able to kind of claw some of that stuff out of the supply chain, we were able to at least keep this small group of 15 people moving. So anytime they went into a house, they were wearing an N95 mask with a respirator valve tape to make sure they were filtering what they were exhaling as well as what they were inhaling. But being very, very careful about spending time in people's living space. And then over time, you know, in May when the reopening guidelines started, we started incorporating more of our field staff from different programs into, you know, exterior repairs. And you can see Bob here wiping down the handrail of a wheelchair ramp he just installed. So the other key philosophy here is just to be flexible. I mean, that means people doing things that they did not sign up for. You know, energy inspectors were fixing gutters. We had insulators installing handrails. Our lead abatement team was installing wheelchair ramps. We had our warehouse manager was basically crowdsourcing his PPE and COVID-19 supplies. You know, sending a crowd of people out to be the first in line in a bunch of different supermarkets all over the metro area, just trying to get that precious bottle of Lysol wipes. So if you didn't find them on the shelves here in Cincinnati, it's our fault, so I apologize. But people were, you know, people that were on furlough, that were office workers that weren't in the office, you know, they were volunteering with the local area agency on aging and helping with food delivery and supplies. So just trying to do whatever we could. Even our development department changed gears. I mean, redirecting our appeals for you know, solicitation of charitable donations, refocusing how we were writing our grant proposals. I mean, everything changed. And so to do that, we couldn't just freewheel it, and we couldn't just do it arbitrarily. We had to have a plan. And once we had a plan, we had to be very clear about communicating that plan to our staff, to our clients, to the people we serve, and to our supporters. So obviously, we had to train everybody. We couldn't just hand them a document and say good luck. We had to have some pretty specific hands-on training with people. So we had groups of 4 people at a time going through these COVID-19 safety guidelines, showing people what we mean by safely taking on and taking off your donning and doffing PPE, how to carefully store their N95 masks, what mask, type of mask to wear in which situation. So, with 80 technicians, it took a long time, but it was worth the investment of time to get everybody up to speed on these new safety guidelines. And for our office staff, things that GH and Sam were talking about, we had to try to do something very similar, limiting office time, rotating office schedules, and when people are here, making sure that they have access to the supplies they need and they're at a safe distance while they're working. And we wanted to do training for all of those things. To our clients, we had to explain to people that we can't do the same stuff in the same way anymore, and there's a good reason for that, and most people understood. We have to explain the precautions we're going to take, and we have to ask them to do their own proactive work to keep us safe on the job site. Isolating themselves in a different part of the home, making sure they're putting the pets up, open the windows if they can, not having visitors, and that gets really tricky. If you're, especially over the summer, if you're doing an energy or an electrical repair in a mobile home, and the folks are out of work, the kids are out of school, the people that do work are working from home, it's a full house in a 15 by 60 house. So sometimes there really isn't a way to isolate yourself very well. So we were setting up poly sheeting, like lead containment, to try to isolate our work area. And then engaging our supporters. We're a nonprofit, we're a charitably funded organization in a lot of ways. So we have to keep our supporters engaged and let them know what we are doing and what can they do to help. Is it really just donations? Is there any sort of remote volunteer opportunities? What is it they can do to keep engaged in our mission before we can kind of get back to what normal is going to be? And then also just realizing we're not reacting to a crisis anymore. This is the new normal. And the other big part of communication that I would stress is just, you're going to mess up. You are, and we have. When you do, and when we did, we have to be accountable. It takes a really long time to build up trust between you and your clients, between you and your coworkers, and it's really easy to lose, especially in a high-stress environment like this. So, for example, our first staff member that was confirmed COVID-19 case, it was scary, and we were slow communicating that to our staff. We weren't sure what the rules were. I mean, this is back in the second week of March. Whose responsibility is it? Exactly how is this contact tracing thing supposed to work? But after that initial scare, we put together a communication plan because we knew it was going to happen again. Every time something happens, if somebody tests positive, we remind people, okay, here's what we did, here's what we're doing, here's access to resources you need. If you come in, we've traced all the people that we think they came in contact with, but if you aren't sure, here's where you can get tested. Here are the symptoms you should be looking out for, and here's what you should do to isolate yourself if you did have to come in contact. So those are things that we needed to keep reinforcing as things happen.
One question that we had is for Aaron, but I will let you know that we will get the answer to this and send it to you. And it was, Aaron, how do families link with PWC when they are in need of housing services, and how do they qualify? So because we're having trouble with audio right now, we'll have to get the answer to that question back to you later. We're coming up on the close of our webinar. Very sorry that we are unable to hear the end of Aaron's presentation. We hope that you enjoyed this webinar. Remind you that if you're looking for credits, for sanitation credits, to fill out the evaluation form and in order to receive the credit. And with that, I will say goodbye and thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And again, special thanks to the Coalition on Homelessness and Housing in Ohio. Thank you everyone for attending.